Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Rose.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
This is our Dexter Original Sin Season 1, Episode 7 reaction and review. From the moment that this episode came out as the title, The Big Bad Body Problem, I was sitting back and being like, all right, this is when this show is finally going to get to business after spending weeks of just like spinning us around and around and around, not knowing what is actually going on here.
Yeah, we have finally gotten some answers on who was behind what happened to Jimmy, who is behind what's happening to Nikki, and the answer is Aaron? It's some of you guys, you've been thinking that it might be Aaron. So you guys in the comments that said Aaron, give yourselves a pat on the back. That is not where I thought that it was going. But this is where it's going. This is where we are. Aaron is behind the judge's son. He's also behind his own son. Question mark? Why? Why is this happening, Aaron? What is your problem with your son?
That's a great way to put it. Now, it's an episode where if you're coming out of this feeling shocked, angry, frustrated, all of the above, guess what? I understand because I'm feeling a lot of the same things. It's like a lot of us probably somewhere in our mind thought that, okay, this is at least on paper a possibility because while Dexter as a franchise has occasionally pulled, central villains out of thin air late in the season, it's usually somebody who we have seen over the course of the season. So it's not an impossible idea that they came up with this, but it's just that in the aftermath of it, a lot of us have to be sitting back and just feeling, what? Like, how does this make any sense? There are a lot of problems we're wrestling with. We're going to try to theorize and make sense of some of that.
Absolutely.
Before we go further into any of that, though, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we do still have several episodes to go here of Dexter Original Sin. By the way, Dexter Resurrection now currently in production. If you guys missed that news, Uma Thurman's apparently going to be in it.
I know. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to cover. But speaking of other things that are fun to cover, we are also currently in the midst of Severance on Apple TV Plus. And also earlier this week, the trailer for Yellow Jackets Season 3 officially dropped. That's coming back on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. What a romantic show that is.
And we will be here with reviews after the episode. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and stick with us. And thank you to everyone who has.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate that.
Let's get into Aaron. For me, I'm having some trouble with this. Not just the whys of it, because they're going to give us some answers on what the whys are.
Yeah.
But it's more of the connection to the OG Dexter series.
Yeah.
If someone of Aaron's stature in the department is doing this to a judge's son, to his own son, Dexter has already put the pieces together and is like, oh my God, it's Aaron. If Aaron gets arrested, that would be a huge thing that would be talked about in the original Dexter series. That would be something that would be talked about for years. I mean, Angel's there, Maria's there, Masuka's there, everybody's there. Dexter is figuring it out himself. He's there. There is no mention of this. So I'm sitting here being like, okay, maybe he doesn't get found out then, because this would definitely be something that would come up at some point. Or if you've got Dexter who's kind of sniffing around it now and is like, what am I going to do about this? It really, affects me when people are doing this to children. I can't have this. I'm getting some evidence together, but I don't have enough to be able to make the kill myself. Just the same, if Aaron gets killed or goes missing or something along those lines, that would be talked about. It would be out there to be like, oh, remember the time our boss just went missing or turned up dead? Like, it's such a big deal.
It is a huge problem. I don't think we can ignore a lot of this. I've tried already in my head because I like to try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I like to try to give shows the benefit of the doubt.
But Dexter never knows how to land the plane. Really good journey. Every single spin-off, original, so good, so fun. We're huge fans. But man, they do not know how to land the plane.
No. And like, I've tried even in my head to be like, okay, was there a moment they might have mentioned this and I just don't remember? And I don't think there ever was. And
No.
so I think with that in mind, are they just going to do the thing? And I don't believe that this would ever be realistic. I'm just throwing it out there where whenever Aaron gets potentially captured or arrested or taken out, are they just going to be like, this is a stain on the department. We will never speak of this again. When it's just like, okay, sure, Jan, you can try that, but I'm not going to believe it. It's still not going to make any sense.
No, of course people are going to talk about it. It would be such a huge deal.
Yeah.
Now, let's kind of get into what is the motive here because they really haven't given much of anything. This was just really like the big shocker. Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
Aaron. But it is kind of interesting that the little bit that we have learned about him
Yeah.
was that, his wife had had an affair on him for 14 years and his kid looks like, I don't know, 12 or 13, maybe around that time,
Yeah.
right? Is this kid actually his? Now we do know that, he got cut.
Yeah.
The blood matches up, at least blood type matches up to Nikki's. So it's like, okay, they're type A, they're type A. Cool. There's a lot of people that are type A.
Mhm.
It would have to get a bit deeper at that point to get into like an actual DNA test where it's like, okay, the blood matches up.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe the DNA does not match up and maybe this isn't actually his son.
Trying to understand the motive here, and that may be a part of it, that this is not actually his son.
I just haven't learned anything else about Aaron.
This is very, very difficult at this point, but you know what? This is what we're here for. We are here to solve difficult problems. So I'm going to put on the tinfoil hat.
Right, tinfoil hat.
I'm also going to put on a cooking apron because I'm going to try to cook here. I'm not going to guarantee this is going to make a good dish, but we're still going to try to cook.
All right, let's cook.
Okay, so what do we know so far about Aaron and what he's been trying to investigate? He's been trying to take down this organization for a while, and it hasn't really produced the fruits that he would want it to do at this point. And what we know, at least about a lot of cops on TV in particular, is that they're very ambitious. They like the glory. They like kind of being the quote unquote superhero.
Right.
And what I'm sort of wondering here is as a possible motive is Aaron so desperate to be able to take this group down that he stages everything with Jimmy Powell first and foremost. And he's kind of thinking, okay, this is going to be the way that eventually, some of the red tape is just going to be thrown out. Everybody's going to be so desperate to take this group down. They're just going to automatically link 2 and 2 together. I'm going to get what I want. Doesn't end up happening. So he's very frustrated at this point. And he's just like, okay, if I'm going to frame this organization more, how am I going to be able to really do it? Oh, my own kid, which is really, really messed up. But then we go into maybe what you're saying. Maybe it's not really his kid, or maybe it's a situation where, because we know that the relationship with him and, his former love here is particularly not great. He may just be thinking, okay, if this happens and Nikki is taken on her watch, maybe I can use this to get custody of the kid myself. I'm going to do this absolutely horrible thing, but maybe because I'm the one doing it, maybe I can make sure that Nikki actually doesn't get killed. He can just come back, be with me. He will have never seen me as the attacker, so it's not like he can ever say I was the one who did it.
Yeah, I think Aaron, the organization is really what I think the motivation would be
Maybe.
because this judge, I mean, you're going after a judge's son. That definitely sends a message. But then here's Aaron, and he's also connected to the same case that they're trying to like take this organization down. He may have been playing it this way to be like, okay, maybe the judge's son is going to be enough to get things moving. And it did. But my kid is going to be the closer. That's the thing where the department's really going to come together and be like, it's one of our own now. Now we really got to get it together and we got to get it together fast. And I think because he's the person that's behind it, yeah, his son's going to lose a finger, but he's probably like, but there's still enough time to get what I want on this organization and close that before anything actually happens to my kid.
Yeah, and then you can be lauded as the hero, and then
Right.
maybe you move up the food chain a little bit more at Miami Metro. Maybe some other big things happen to you. I mean, if he is so selfish and so driven by this ambition, it could kind of cloud everything else in his head. I think a really important thing to remember here is the very specific MO that we're dealing with in between what happened to Jimmy in the end, Jimmy Pal being captured first and foremost. Like, this is not something that has been going on forever because these cases are too high profile. This is not seemingly some fixation that Aaron has had the majority of his adult life. Like, this is really twisted, but it also seems to be very particularly motivated by whatever is kind of going on in the moment.
And they've shown that he is somebody that's pretty cold. I mean, naming certain groups of people, no human involved. I
Yeah.
mean, that came from Aaron, right?
Yeah.
So if he already just doesn't see certain people as even people, then is it that far of a stretch that he would move into this type of behavior? Probably not. But let's talk about NHI, no
Okay.
human involved, because we've got Maria starting to feel like, after speaking to Dexter,
Yeah.
that the 3 murders that they have might be all linked. It might all be the same person, that it might be someone who's fledgling at this, that is still trying to figure out what their own MO is, what excites them, what makes them their own killer. And we had seen some of you guys in the comments thinking that that might be Brian. And,
Yeah.
we had thought maybe that Brian was behind what was going on with the judge's sons, the judge's son, and now Nikki, but obviously it is Aaron. But it does feel possible that this could be the beginning origin story of Brian, because we all feel really confident that we saw him at that table
Yeah.
with Dexter. This would be around the time that he would be experimenting and trying to figure out what his deal is. And we do know that the people that he targeted are the same group of people that are getting killed now.
It makes a lot of sense. I think the biggest thing with this show is that everything is being done for a reason, even if the reasons don't necessarily make a lot of sense in a lot of ways. Like, it's easy to, at the very least, say with Aaron that they have to find a way to get him out of there eventually because they're going to bring Captain Matthews in at some point, right? It's kind of like Dokes. We have to get to the iconic characters, and we know Matthews in particular has a pretty long history with Dexter and Harry, so they got to get to that. But this all seems to be here for a pretty good reason, and we saw what we believe to be Brian for a pretty good reason. I am with you that I still think that he is around to some degree, and it would actually make more sense now that we kind of have this perspective that these no human involved cases would be more linked to him, because it's kind of a terrifying truth that these cases can fall through the cracks a little bit more often, and that would enable him to be out there for a longer period of time without being caught. I mean, what's happening to Jimmy Powell and Nikki? Like, these are things where everybody wants a culprit. They're just getting all of these constant headlines. I mean, it's just the unfortunate reality of society, even back in 1990s.
Yeah, Brian has to start somewhere, to where we ended up actually seeing him in the original series, which is, over a decade later.
Yeah.
He's refined everything very, very, very well. So to sort of have this idea that we're going to be seeing someone in their fledgling beginnings of their killing history is interesting. Someone had mentioned the idea of a Brian spinoff origin story.
Yeah.
I would love to see that, either here on this show where we're getting a bit of an origin story, or a spinoff where, we're apparently getting a Trinity origin story. So why not Brian?
You might as well just do the whole Dexter.
Give it all.
Dexter Extended Universe. DEU? Okay, that doesn't
Dew.
That doesn't sound great. Okay, well, I have one more problem here. while we're talking about weird things here. Okay, one more thing about Aaron that's driving me crazy. And this is stupid. I admit that. How is Patrick Dempsey able to do all of that, like, fancy schmancy stuff that we saw the masked person do with that scene with Nikki? It felt like that guy was
the fight scene.
That guy was on, like, American Ninja Warrior or something, and I'm to believe that Patrick Dempsey, and this is no disrespect to McDreamy, iconic, very legendary TV figure. I do not buy for a second that Patrick Dempsey can move that quickly at this stage in his career. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they could be athletic, but the way that Aaron has been presented at the station, he's kind of riding a desk. So is
Yeah.
he at home working out or, using his Peloton possibly, maybe? I mean, I guess he has to be.
He's just not the epitome of a healthy lifestyle here, is what I'm saying with Aaron. I mean, he's a fascinating character at this point. Good. I guess this is why you got Dempsey to sign on in the first place. You're giving him the opportunity to do something this dark, but there's going to probably be a lot of time spent on him. I do think if this whole Brian no human involved thing is true, I do think we're going to see him again, maybe in the finale. Maybe that is to set up a spinoff. Maybe that's just a, hey, look, he's still out there. We want you to be thinking about him, even if we don't see him again anytime soon.
Okay, let's talk about Dexter.
Yeah.
So, as I think a lot of us thought he was going to find a way to get out of the situation where he had Levi in the back of his truck, he's driving up to the swamp, and then he gets stopped by the cops. They're like, sorry, active crime scene. I was like, okay, a couple of things are going to happen. They're either going to just be like, turn around, you can't be here, sort
Yeah.
of thing. Or it was going to turn into this, where he was going to flash his badge and be like, yeah, I'm here because I was called. And that is what ended up happening. He just was like, yeah, I'm forensics. I'm here. Oh, yeah, there's my team. See ya. And that's how it rolled out.
I was legitimately surprised. Like, I'll admit this. I thought it was just going to be something as dumb as, oh, okay, sorry, I didn't mean to be here. And then he was just going to go away. I did not think he was just going to have the guts in this moment to be like, hey, I need to go and look at these guts. And he does. And I found the whole scene with how he manages to have a little bit of second breakfast for the alligators here. I thought this was very, very entertaining. I'm not going to pretend like it wasn't.
No, it was entertaining. It was smart thinking on his feet. He is still an intern. So at this point, it wasn't going to be too surprising, even though Maria was like, oh my God, like this is so bad. But at the same time, it's like, well, he's 20 years old, right? He's brand new at this. Mistakes happen. He's still learning on the job. That's why he's an intern. This is where he's supposed to make his mistakes. And, being able to sort of at least have it this way to be like, oh my goodness, I almost died, oh no, and this got away, I'm really sorry, but this is how it played out. It is how it played out. We had Angel later still focused on, oh, I
Yep.
got a picture of the ring. It's just like, no, we got to focus on Nikki. Like, this is the focus. This guy's a trash bag and he's gone. Like, justice served. Let's focus on getting, Aaron's son back. Oh, okay. I thought that was really well maneuvered for a young Dexter.
This episode, I think, did just an amazing job. As frustrated as we may be with other parts of this episode,
Yeah.
it did an amazing job showing why Dexter is able to advance and move on in his career the way that he does,
Yeah.
where, yeah, he makes a mistake when it comes to the Gators, but he shows himself to be very influential with Batista.
Yeah.
And then he ends up being the person who identifies the blood on the box, and he's able to kind of give this quote unquote big leap forward in the case, which is actually a pretty big piece of evidence for him. So he sort of proves himself even in the midst of his mistakes in this episode, and it kind of helps to overshadow whatever he did wrong here. I do want to give a quick little shout out to Masuka. This was a great episode for the Masuka laugh. We got a lot of over the course of this, and
Some good jokes.
I was very, very much entertained by how inappropriate you are and how you would not have a. This is the big thing. We haven't heard about Masuka's future in Dexter Resurrection.
Yeah.
Can Masuka be hired in 2025? I really do not know.
I just wish that they had a little more of Masuka on the show here. I mean, he is somebody who, yeah, of course, he's got jokes and he's there
Yeah.
for some comic relief, but he is also somebody that helped train Dexter, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, he's somebody who's quite influential in his life.
Yeah, he is. And that's the same with a lot of characters right now. It feels like a lot of people are being a little bit underused, especially when this show is having to make time for the Deb storyline, which is pretty frustrating at times. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I did not enjoy everything still with Dexter and Sophia and that part of it, because I will always enjoy Dexter being terrible with love interests and how awkward all of that is.
Yeah.
But her in the volleyball team, and oh, she's been kicked off the team, but she may not be able to go to Florida State now. It's like, okay, I know all this is necessary,
Mhm.
but it's not what this show is about. And I'm just struggling to get through it right now.
I think they just have a real challenge with the Deb character because she's not old enough to be on the force yet. She is still going to just be going through teenage stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we all think that there's something shifty with Geo, and there probably is, but I don't want to just see her have a difficult relationship with Geo where he's maybe part of the organization or something else. We've already seen stuff like that happen to her in the OG series as well, where it's just kind of like, does she need to be sort of taken or something happened to her that's traumatic? Like, it doesn't need to just be, this is Deb's life over and over and over again. All of this makes sense. She's trying to, move forward, get into a college, volleyball team, friends, boyfriend. This is what would be happening to her at this time, as unexciting as it might be.
Yeah. Let's just have Geo suck for a completely different reason. She ends up breaking up with him. She ends up finding her path to get to Miami Metro sooner rather than later. And then I think, guess what? We can all be happy to a certain extent.
Yeah. Okay. We need to talk about your favorite part.
No, we don't have to talk about it.
Beep, bop, 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 boop. We are back in the past where I have my beef hat on because we had a situation here where Dexter was calling Harry daddy. Stop. He can't be this old and have this many types of memories of Harry where he's calling Harry dad. He's drawing pictures of his family, and that includes Harry, to the point that when we know that eventually Harry's the person who pulls Dexter out of the container and adopts him, that he has no recollection of any memories of ever calling him dad, having him staying over, reading him stories, to the point that he's drawing pictures of him as his dad. None of this tracks.
Okay, here is, I think, a little bit of what Dexter Original Sin may be doing. Assuming that none of us have watched the original show anytime soon, where they're just sort of like...
And there are, for sure.
Yeah, but that's still a problem. And I understand that certain things are going to be changed a little bit because you got to make the prequel work. You have to establish tension for this show.
But this isn't it. This doesn't bring anything to the show, and it hurts the original.
Yeah, you have to find a way to sort of bridge the gap between perfect continuity and also making this show really entertaining. And it's just like, for right now, they're focused a little too much on making this show entertaining to the point where it's making it distracting because of the continuity. And it would be easier if they were just like little things here or there we can ignore. But I think it's just because of this issue with Dexter, because they never talk about Aaron in the original show. We know that Aaron is seemingly the big bad now. There are just a lot of issues. The past storyline, I'm just never going to be with it, guys. I'm sorry. It's not that I'm just like here to dog on the actors or anything else. It's just that I feel like I know everything that I need to know about that era. And it's going to be really hard unless they drop another big secret like they did that Harry had a son a long, long time ago. If there's another big secret, sure, I'll get on board with it. I'll work my way back around.
Maybe. It depends on what the secret is. This really is just... This is a good backstory for people who haven't seen the original, where you're actually getting to see it play out, what happened and how Harry ended up with Dexter. But for those of us who have watched the original series, we already know this information. This is just watching the flashbacks of how it played out, but we know how it played out.
Okay, as we look forward here, I've got one more theory as to how at least some of this is going to end up playing out. Because obviously, Dexter's going to do whatever he can now to try to take out Aaron. I think he has enough information now to be pretty confident that this is the direction that it's going. The problem is, he's Dexter. He's very new at this department. Not a lot of people are going to believe him. So I think it's going to take a little while before Aaron either disappears, goes on his table, whatever else ends up happening to him. I did like that idea you brought up earlier, that maybe he does just get away to some extent and goes and takes a job elsewhere. Maybe that's a little bit easier to buy. But what I think that is eventually going to happen is that Nikki is going to end up being okay, or not going to end up dying, because that's just a very difficult bridge for me to cross right now with this character. And I think he's trying to use this for leverage. I think the next victim is probably going to be one of Tanya's kids. at this point, because they got to set up at some point, whether it's this season or next season, Tanya ain't going to be around anymore. And I think if something like this happens to her while she's a part of this job, she's not going to be really all that excited about going to work at this place anymore. And I would understand why.
She needs something to do. Why
Yes.
is she on this show with nothing to do? Where every episode she gets like a minute of screen time. Why are you casting somebody who's iconic in television for a role that's barely there, that isn't really adding anything to it? You could have had anybody in this role. Why did she roll out of bed for this role?
I will admit to something very sad here.
Okay.
During that whole scene with Nikki and who we now know to be Aaron, I was pausing it, I was rewinding it, I was trying my best to be a Tanya truther for the entirety of that and being like, could this still be her? But I was in denial. I was like, okay, obviously it's not her. It's obviously a guy way taller than her. But it was just, I wanted to believe that she was the big bad so bad because I was just desperate for her to have something to do.
I want Aaron to be the one that got away for Dexter. And so that when we go into Resurrection, because I know that they're going to want to try to link this original sin to Resurrection in some kind of way.
Yeah.
Just let him be the guy who got away, that he does transfer, go somewhere else. Dexter never really was able to get his hands on him. You know, let's say he's whatever, 58, 59 now. Sure, he could maybe be like 74 or 75. He'll still be alive and he'll still be out there.
Yeah, he's still going to be out there. I don't think that it's so crazy to think that, oh, he's just going to die because he's older. No, I think he could still be out there. Maybe he's retired. Maybe he's doing this to some other people in some other way. Like, I do agree that it's a lot more interesting if Aaron is the one that gets away. And at that point, because Dexter is so inundated with other cases, maybe he's just not thinking about this anymore in the present day show, or maybe it's just kind of a reality of life where, you know, if you're a doctor, unfortunately, you're going to lose some patients. If you are Dexter and you do what Dexter does, you're not going to be able to get them all.
No, and maybe that's a way that they'll be able to sort of move people over to the show of people that are like, oh, I don't really want to watch this. Michael C. Hall's not in it, whatever the reason is. I mean, I hope that it'll help turn things around a little bit for the show.
Yeah.
Because for the few problems that this show has, overall, this is a really fun show.
It's true. This is one of those shows where we criticize because we love.
Real fans will call it out.
Yeah, like, you know, we love the world of Dexter. This show is messy. It doesn't always make sense, but you know what? I'm still having a great time. I'm enjoying all the little things. I like seeing awkward Dexter. I like hearing Masuka laughs. It's just really fun to be in this world again, and we will continue to do that. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our Dexter Original Sin coverage. And you can support us further by joining our Patreon. We have exclusive video content over there for The Pit on Max and Prime Target for Apple TV Plus. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you here next time.